Behind the speeches and handshakes, a secret war rages between General Michael Langley and Ibrahim Traoré. This isn't just politics, it's Africa's new Cold War. What's happening in the shadows will change everything. Stay tuned, across the vast lands of Africa, from the dusty streets of Ouagadougou to the busy cities of Lagos and Dar, a silent storm was gathering. For years, the world barely noticed. Foreign soldiers built quiet bases. Deals were signed behind closed doors. Africa, the richest continent in resources, was being carved up again. But this time without gunfire. It was happening with pens, meetings, and words. At the heart of this hidden web stood one man, General Michael Langley, the head of ARICOM, America's powerful military command for Africa. His job was clear: protect American interest across the continent. Publicly, they spoke of helping Africa. Privately, they spoke of oil, minerals, and influence. Langley wasn't just any soldier. He was a strategist. He knew Africa's importance in the future world economy. He understood that whoever controlled Africa controlled the future. But what Langley didn't expect was resistance from someone so unexpected. A young, bold captain from one of Africa's poorest countries, Burkina Faso. Captain Ibrahim Traoré wasn't a politician. He didn't grow up in palaces. He was a soldier, a son of farmers, a man who understood hunger, struggle, and the dignity of his people. When he rose to power in Burkina Faso, many thought he would be easy to sway like so many before him. But they were wrong. Traoré had a dream, not just for Burkina Faso, but for all of Africa. A dream of a continent free from outside control. A dream where Africans decided their own future, kept their own wealth, and protected their own lands. He spoke in simple words that touched millions. Africa will no longer be anyone's playground. Africa will stand on its own feet. And the people listened. As Traoré grew in strength, a quiet panic began in certain rooms of Washington, Paris, and Brussels. How could a young captain without billions of dollars, without massive armies, challenge the might of the world's strongest powers? The answer was simple. He had something they didn't: the hearts of the people. In markets, in schools, in mosques, and churches, people whispered his name. Have you heard the young captain? He speaks for us. He is not afraid. And so the lines were drawn not on a map, but in the minds of millions. On one side, General Langley and the Old World, a system built on control, extraction, and quiet domination. On the other side, Captain Traoré and the New Africa, a dream of self-rule, dignity, and real independence. But dreams are dangerous. Langley understood this better than anyone. Dreams cannot be bombed. Dreams cannot be bribed. Dreams, once planted, grow stronger with every attempt to destroy them. And so, a secret battle began. A battle without tanks, but no less deadly. A battle fought in whispers, in words, in backroom deals. A battle for the soul of Africa. And at its center stood two men, one representing the old ways of domination, the other the new fire of freedom. The world had not yet realized it, but Africa was waking up and nothing would ever be the same again. The first signs of the secret battle showed up quietly. American officials arrived in West Africa with smiles, promises, and gifts. They offered training, equipment, and money. They said they wanted to help Burkina Faso fight terrorism. They said they wanted to partner for stability. But Captain Traoré saw through it. He had studied history. He knew how promises of help had led to broken lands and lost freedom. He knew that foreign bases often meant foreign control, and he knew that accepting these offers would be the first step to losing everything the people had fought for. So when the envoys came, Traoré did what few leaders dared to do. He said no. At first, Washington did not believe it. No one said no to Africa. No one rejected their offers and walked away. But Traoré did. And with each rejection, the pressure grew. More meetings, more visits, even quiet threats. Still, Traoré stood firm. Behind him, the people began to rise. In Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, thousands filled the streets waving flags. They shouted his name. They carried signs that said, "Africa for Africans." Women danced, old men prayed, young people sang songs of freedom. Other countries started watching. In Mali, Niger, Guinea, the people saw what was happening. They saw a leader who did not bow, and they began to hope. Langley, sitting at his desk far away, watched the reports come in. He saw the videos of the crowds. He read the intelligence briefings and he understood something important. This was not just about Burkina Faso anymore. This was about an idea spreading like fire across Africa. An idea that could not be stopped with weapons or threats. An idea that was bigger than any one man. General Langley's job became harder by the day. New alliances were forming. African armies joining hands without foreign guidance. It was happening faster than anyone expected. The pressure to act was enormous. American media started raising alarms. Langley called for more diplomatic missions. He told his envoys to offer more aid, to promise more support, but it was too late. Troy had captured the hearts of the people, and once the people believe, no lie can cover the truth. Meanwhile, Troy didn't just sit back. He traveled across Burkina Faso meeting farmers, students, workers. He listened to their stories. He promised change and he reminded them, "Our land is ours. Our future is ours. No one will take it from us again." He strengthened alliances with neighboring countries. He looked eastward toward partnerships that respected African sovereignty, and every step he took was like a slap to those who thought Africa would always kneel. General Langley and the Western powers faced a problem they couldn't solve with confrontation. A young man with a dream and a people ready to fight for it. The battle was no longer about troops and tanks. It was about will. It was about who would blink first. And with each passing day, it was clear. Captain Traoré was not blinking. The silent war grew louder, and the world began to watch, because somewhere deep in Africa, the chains of old empires were beginning to crack. The stage was set for a moment that would change everything. The world first realized something big was happening on a hot afternoon in Ouagadougou. The city's main square overflowed with people, tens of thousands, maybe more. Men, women, children, all carrying flags, banners, and posters with one face, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. The air buzzed with a mix of hope, anger, and something deeper. A long-silenced roar rising from the soul of a people who had had enough. On that day, Traoré was not just speaking to Burkina Faso. He was speaking to all of Africa, and the world was listening. He stepped onto the simple wooden stage. No armored cars, no heavy guards, just a young soldier in uniform standing in front of his people. The cheers were so loud it shook the ground. When he raised his hand, the noise stopped like magic. Every heart leaned closer. Every ear listened. And then, with a voice steady like a river carving through stone, Traoré said, "For too long our leaders have smiled while our lands were taken. Today we break those chains. Today we say no more foreign influence on African soil." The crowd exploded. Flags waved. Tears flowed across the ocean in Washington. Langley watched the footage with a heavy heart. It wasn't just Troy's words that mattered. It was the fire he had lit. A fire that was spreading fast and couldn't be put out with deals, drones, or diplomacy. The world's powerful nations realized something frightening. This was no longer one man's rebellion, it was a movement. Langley faced a terrible choice. Use force and risk uniting all of Africa against them, or pull back and lose influence over a continent they had once quietly ruled. But Langley, a seasoned soldier, knew something others forgot. You can win battles, but if you lose the people's hearts, you lose the war. But Troy seemed ready for every move. He called on African nations to unite and form their own security forces. He strengthened ties with leaders who shared his vision of a free Africa. He spoke not of hate for foreigners, but of love for Africa, and that made him even more dangerous to those who wished to control. The defining moment came when Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger announced a new regional pact, a military and economic alliance free from Western control. A slap in the face to the old powers. Crowds celebrated across the Sahel. Songs were written. Paintings of Traoré appeared on walls. An artist in Bamako said it best. Traoré is not just one man. He is the dream of every African mother who wants her child to live free. Langley understood. Then the old game was over. The masks had fallen. Africa was no longer begging at the tables of foreign powers. It was building its own house, brick by brick, voice by voice, dream by dream. And at the center of this great awakening stood a young captain who dared to say no. A single act of courage had lit a fire across a whole continent. And that fire was just getting started. After the Great Rally, the world began to shift around Africa. In Washington and Paris, officials scrambled to adjust their strategies. Public statements spoke of respecting African sovereignty. But behind closed doors, there was fear. Fear that more African nations would follow Traoré's example. Fear that the old systems of quiet domination would collapse. But in Africa, the mood was different. There was a sense of rising hope, a hope not seen in generations. Ordinary people who once believed nothing would ever change now saw proof that change was possible. Farmers in Mali, teachers in Ghana, students in Kenya, all began dreaming bigger dreams. If Burkina Faso could rise, why not them? If Traoré could speak truth to power, why couldn't their leaders? Traoré continued his work calmly. He focused on rebuilding his nation from the ground up. He invested in agriculture, in education, in healthcare. He encouraged young Africans to learn their history, the real history, not the one written by colonizers. He reminded them that they were heirs to mighty civilizations, to warriors, to scholars, to builders. And above all, he reminded them that freedom must be guarded always. Though threats still lurked in the shadows, Traoré's message had given birth to something unstoppable. A movement of minds, a movement of hearts, a movement of people who realized that true power had always belonged to them. They had just been made to forget. The old ways were crumbling slowly but surely. And even if battles remained ahead, Africa had found something even stronger than weapons: faith in itself. While the world watches official meetings, press releases, and polite diplomatic visits, a deeper, invisible war is being fought, one that could define Africa's future for decades. At the heart of it stand two powerful figures, U.S. General Michael Langley and Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Their clash is not just personal, it represents a new, silent Cold War being waged for the soul of a rising Africa. On one side, Langley represents the old order, a system where African nations were often treated as pawns in larger global games, pressured into alliances that served foreign interests more than their own people. On the other side, Traoré symbolizes the new Africa, proud, unafraid, and determined to break free from the chains of dependency. What makes this battle so dangerous is that it's fought not with armies on open fields, but with influence, deals, covert operations, and political maneuvers. Every speech, every trade negotiation, every sudden diplomatic move carries weight in this unseen war. When Langley first issued subtle threats toward Burkina Faso, many assumed Traoré would back down, under pressure. Instead, Traoré stood taller, doubling down on his commitment to African sovereignty, rejecting outside interference, and inspiring millions across the continent to demand the same for their own nations. This resistance has quietly alarmed many in the West, leading to a rise in covert efforts to destabilize or pressure leaderships that refuse to bend. Meanwhile, Traoré's quiet alliances with other rising African leaders and his growing connection to movements like BRICS have only intensified the battle behind closed doors. For ordinary citizens, the effects are beginning to surface. Through sudden media narratives, unexpected diplomatic tensions, and shifts in international relations that all point to something bigger brewing just out of sight. This isn't the Cold War of the past. It's a new struggle where the battlefield is sovereignty, and the weapon is influence. And unlike before, Africa is not standing quietly on the sidelines. Leaders like Ibrahim Traoré are showing that Africa will write its own future, no matter how powerful the forces against it. As this secret battle unfolds, one thing is clear: the old games are ending. A new chapter is being written, and this time, Africa holds the pen.